Authority Incorporated, and we welcome you to our Scam Alert Workshop. Yay. I am a praying woman. My line name is Prayer Warrior, and I've been praying over this event, and the devil is a liar, because he has tried to do some of everything to stop this workshop, including this empty chair right here. Speaker number 3 shall be arriving. She's dealing with a minor emergency right now, but speaker number 3 will be arriving. Before I start, this workshop is being live streamed on our Facebook page. So, quick social media opportunity, tag your friends and tell them to come over to North Arundel County Long Beach Chapter Facebook page and join us. Quick social media, quick social media. So, our moderator, Sora Lisa Brooks, is going to introduce our speakers. I'm just going to welcome you. Thank you for coming, especially out in the rain. We're going to have some more stragglers coming in, I'm sure, to join us. Help yourself to the refreshments that are here. Make sure you pick up our gift, which is a protective card, a protective pouch for your credit card, along with the Scam Alert or fraud theme. This helps you from having your credit card skimmed from somebody as you walk by. We also have voter registration in the back. Social action and voting is a big part of what Delta Sigma Theta does, so you have the opportunity to register to vote. So why are we here? Because fraud is a major issue in society today. Just some quick stats here. In 2023, Americans lost a record $10 billion with a B, $10 billion to fraud. Americans of all ages. Fraud knows no age group. Our target audience today is mature adults, us. Mature adults. We fall victim to all types of fraud. There's investment scams, imposter scams, online shopping scams, credit card fraud, phishing scams. Looking here through some quick stats I found. Advanced fee scams. 44% of adults ages 20 to 29 have reported fraud. There's all types of fraud going on. Interestingly enough, 2 things I want to bring to your attention. This past February, I was in Florida, and I took my Easy Pass, because if you ever go to Orlando, as soon as you turn the corner, you're going through a toll. And you turn the next corner, and you're going through another toll. When I got back, I was told that I owed the Sun Passes, the Orlando version of Easy Pass, money. Okay. So the Easy Pass, I thought, didn't register on one of those tolls when I turned the corner. It was a scam. But when I clicked on it, it looked exactly like their motor vehicle website. And I mean, I clicked through it. It was an identical replica of their site. And they almost got my debit card, because I had gotten the notice from our motor vehicles, our MBA, Maryland MBA, that I owed them money. So when I got the notice from the Sun Pass and previous notice from our Maryland motor vehicle, I thought it was legit, but it wasn't. And it's widespread all over Florida that this scam is going on. But guess what? I didn't know it, and almost got scammed. So I call Anne Arundel County Police. I team up. I'm put in touch with Sergeant Rex to ask, do you have an officer that can come out and talk about this? And he starts telling me how he almost got scammed. Okay, well, you're the officer that's in charge of the officers to come out to speak. And we had this long conversation. because the scams are just that real. My sorority sisters know that I'm not an expert, but I'm pretty daggone good with finances, and I almost got scammed. Then I called the officer who's in charge of the officers that come out to speak, and he's telling me, and I'm thinking he better than I am, he almost got scammed. These scams are really, really good. That's how this workshop started to build. And then I'm Googling, and I come across Mr. Andre Lynn, who is great. Okay? And here we are. Then, after that, we started putting this thing together, and for over a decade, I have had freezes on my credit report. So, Rihanna, can you hand me one of the gifts, please? You walk past it.
The black thing.
The black thing. For over a decade, thank you, I've had freezes on my credit report. And I've had a credit monitoring service. I get an alert in August from my credit monitoring service that my social security number, date of birth, home address, everything is on the dark web. I would have jumped out the window, but I live in a one-level house. So Shonda, she was trying to help me not jump out the window on the one-level house. Because I was freaking out. Like, you're fine, you're protected, you got your freezers, you got everything in place. Inside your protective shield is a QR code that goes to the chapter website, and we put resources. This credit brief is assumed to have affected nearly every American, from the babies to the recently deceased, that your social security number and other private information is for sale on the dark web. This is really important. Take this card and read the resources that we have put on the website. Share this information. They want to talk about so much information. So Chandra is a therapist. She's going to talk about the psychological impact of recovering from fraud. Because some of you may have been victims or know people who have been victims, and the psychological impact of it. This is her role, and she's working on getting here. Okay? So this is critical. This is the pouch that you put your credit card in, and this shield protects it from being read by scanners, because I've been skimmed where they put the fake thing on top of the ATM machine and they read your card. I've had that happen. So this protects people from reading your card as you walk by. This is full of resources. Even the Social Security Administration has put out a blog, because this most recent data breach with everybody's information being for sale on the dark web, information is here, and that's why we put this information inside this pouch. Okay? So, that's why we're here. Lisa Creators, and make sure I'm online, I'm on target. We had the voter registration. I mentioned the QR code. Oh, did we give out the 3x5 cards? Okay, so you have a 3x5 card. We recognize that you may have a question that's very personal, and you don't want to stand up and raise your hand and say, hey, that's me. Write your question on the card, and we will collect the card, and that way your question can be asked anonymously, because we don't want to embarrass you, or we don't want you to feel embarrassed, but we want to get your questions answered, because we have experts sitting here. Okay? So please, that's what the card is for. You're welcome to raise your hand, but if you have a question that you're not comfortable sharing, write it on the card. It's like church, pass it to the aisle. We're going to collect it, and we're going to bring it up here, and Sora Lisa will read it to the panelists, and we'll get your answers. Any questions? That welcome was probably a little bit longer than I planned, but I'm a little bit passionate, And this stuff is going on live in real time, and people do not realize how big this last data breach is, because it affects everybody. And I've been trying to scream at people that you really need to look at your newborns, your toddlers, get those credit freezes on. Well, they don't have credit, but yeah, they're not gonna check it till they're 18 or 20, and they're gonna have all this stuff when they're pregnant. Why recently deceased? When my father passed in 2019, the first thing I did was pull his credit report and put freezes on everything. Why? He's gone. Because he passed in February 2019. Taxes were due in April for 2018. I didn't want my mom to have to deal with identity theft. And then she was going, because he lived 2 months into 2019, that meant in April 2020, we'll have to file joint taxes again. Didn't want to have to deal with identity theft. First thing I did was put freezes. And he was gone. This is for real. And now with this data breach, I put freezes on hers too. They were, he was 89, so she was 84. She don't need to buy nothing. She don't need to buy nothing. But if she does, she just lift the freeze. Like he left us with a leased car. Like we never leased a car in life, and then you want to leave us and we don't know how to get out of a lease. But to get out the lease, all I did was lift the freeze. And then got out the lease and put the freeze back on. It took 5 minutes. That's it. It's not a permanent thing that you're locked into forever. But do the research. Knowledge is power. There's knowledge here, and that's why we're giving it to you. We do have extra cards. Okay? If the attendance stays like this, we got extra pouches. Okay, I'm gonna sit down now, Lisa.
Thank you, Jennifer. It's more compelling to hear stories, real personal stories of things that have happened in people's lives where they've been affected by all this stuff that's happening right now. It's real. It's real. So I want to start by introducing our panelists, and we have 3 panelists, as she said. I'm gonna tell you about the 3rd panelist before she gets here. That way, when she gets here, she can just slip on in, and you all will know who she is. So I'll start by introducing Mr. Andre Lingham. In the bio, are the bios on the QR code?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Full bios
on the QR code. Yes, but I'll read some highlights. So, Mr. Andre Lingham is the founder and president of the Center for Elder Justice and Education, a nonprofit organization established in 2021. The organization is dedicated to raising awareness about elder abuse and providing education in this critical area. With over 30 years of service in law enforcement, Andre retired from the Howard County Police Department in 2019 to focus his efforts full-time on elder abuse awareness and education. Let's give Mr. Lingham a round of applause. And secondly, we have Detective Dalton Hatcher. Detective Hatcher has been on the Anne Arundel County Police Force for 8 years, where he serves in the Western District Detective Unit. In his role, he deals with fraud reports on a daily basis. That's pretty telling. He has completed multiple trainings that deal with fraud, identification, and prevention. So let's welcome Detective Hatcher. And then we'll have joining us in a moment, Chandra Parks. And so Dr. Chandra Parks is a licensed master social worker and has been working with children, youth, and families for over 20 years in the areas of child welfare, community social work, and ministry wellness. She is currently employed as a family involvement facilitator, a resource home worker, and a field instructor for MSW students with the University of Maryland School of Social Work. And she's also an active member of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. So let's give her a round of applause. She's not here, but let's send her some good vibes. And so, thank you all so much for taking time out of your day to join with us. It is real. I think the stories that Jennifer said, wow, I don't think any of us want to be in that situation. So, I'm going to start, though, by letting each one of you just give an introduction about yourself. Take about 10 minutes and just share a little bit more about yourself and really what you do, maybe some things that you've seen lately, some trends, some tips and things like that that you would like to share with our attendees today.
Sure. Thanks for inviting me. Every chance I get to come out and educate the public or interact and share my experiences and my stories, I jump at it. So when I got the email, checked my calendar, it was clear, and I said I'd be here. So little bit about how I got here. I obviously was on the police department, had always been interested in community outreach. Didn't really know what that meant, but I knew I wanted to serve the public. So our senior liaison position became open. I put in for it. Quite honestly, I had no idea what it entailed. So I put in for it and actually got it. So the position had been in place for about 7 years, and the young lady that was in the position before I got it was ready to retire. So she started it. She met with me for 5 minutes before she left, and didn't share pretty much anything with me. So I basically had to start from scratch. I asked her, while I was preparing to take over, hey, can you leave me your lesson plans and, different things like that. She literally said, yeah, you don't need that, because those people that sometimes they don't really hear or see well. It blew my mind. I'm like, well, you're the senior liaison, and if you know these are barriers and issues, what's your job? To tear those barriers and issues down. So I literally started from scratch. So I did what most people do. I went to Google University, and I Googled senior citizen liaison, and I got connected with a young lady in the police department in Ohio. That she was civilian, but that was her specific job. So I reached out to her, and we literally talked for about 3 hours. And she just opened my eyes up to elder abuse in general, and in particular fraud, and how it really affects the community and older adults and family members, and how family members are being exploited and you don't even know they're being victimized. It happened in my family. So for my first probably 2 months, I stayed out of the office. I was going around to churches, I was going around to senior centers, 55 and older communities, basically begging, hey, can I come in and give a presentation? So that really took off. And I got Police Officer of the Year my first year doing that. But really, it was a big education for me to understand everything that's going on in public, but we don't see. My first case was a foreign lottery scam, where a gentleman was getting these letters saying he won millions of dollars from the lottery, but he just had to pay the taxes. In this case, it was only $15, $20. But what happens is when you respond to one of those letters, they flood your mailbox. In his case, he spent over $40,000, and the biggest check was $26, and the smallest one was $9. Again, he got so psychologically wrapped up into wanting this fantasy to come true that he was just throwing money at it. And he was an educated man, had just sold his business in Montgomery County. I mean, the type of person you wouldn't think would fall for that scam. When I met with him the first time, he said, oh yeah, I'm waiting for a check for $1 million to be finished. Of course, it never shows up, But again, it's psychologically, and I'm glad our other panelists is here. A lot of times we don't think about that aspect of it. Another case I worked on was an online romance scam. Doctor had recently retired, early onset of dementia. She was about 65 years old. Posted on Facebook, a dating site on Facebook. Person responded, typically American working overseas, and they build up a relationship by email, sometimes phone calls. Eventually, they will want money. He needed some money. She ended up sending him over $600,000. My biggest victim that I personally worked with was $1.5 million, and he was a retired worker from NSA. Again, they want that fantasy to come true. So there's a lot of different scams out there, and I won't, we'll probably talk about different ones as we go through. But I just want to talk a couple that I specifically worked on. It's out there and it's happening. I was given a presentation on identity theft. I was showing a video and I happened to check my phone and I got an email saying, hey, are you using your card at Walmart in Ellicott City? And I'm literally giving a presentation on identity theft, and I get the email that someone had cloned my card and was using it in Ellicott City. It can happen to anyone else. Anyone. So you just got to be vigilant. I'm sure we'll talk about different things as we go through today. So,
Thank you so much for sharing. I mean, you brought up a good point, the psychological impact, and that could be really embarrassing. And having to tell your family that I've given them, $1 million, I can't imagine.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Detective Hatcher, would you like to introduce yourself, please?
It's my first time doing something like this, so I don't really know. I've actually been a detective for a month now. I've been on patrol my entire career. I started in October of 2016. But during that time, I've always wanted to be a detective, so while I had the time, I would always investigate stuff. And primarily the easiest things for me to be able to pick up were fraud cases. I haven't had any $1 million cases. The biggest one I had was $70,000. But the gentleman, pretty wealthy family, but these guys from Britain, they pretended to be FBI agents. They had fake badges. They called him every day, and they were telling him that people were like hacking his bank accounts and stuff. So he would have to move the money to their bank accounts to keep it safe. So they were taking his money the whole time, and he had his wife believe in it. They're on vacation on a cruise. He was calling them, trying to keep his money safe. They were just giving him money the whole time. And like I said, it's embarrassing because he didn't believe me. He thought I was a scammer trying to get the money from him. And I went to his house and told him he was being scammed. Because we got told by some random third-party agency that tracks it somehow that like you guys need to go to this guy's house because he's being scammed for all that money. The ones we normally see, they'll call you and say like, hey, this is the Maryland Sheriff. If you have a warrant, you need to give us $500 in Green Dot gift cards. First off, we'll never tell you to have a warrant, right, if you have one. Second, a place like the IRS, they're not going to ask you for prepaid Visa gift cards or Green Dot gift cards or Apple iTunes gift cards, anything like that. What else?
To piggyback on iTunes gift cards, people kind of laugh when we bring that up, but I had a couple victims that paid the IRS on iTunes gift cards. So why would the IRS want you to pay whatever you owe them on iTunes gift cards?
A lot of times too, though, you see a lot of you'll get a phone call and say, hey, grandma, this is Johnny. I got locked up. I need bail money. Well, when you hear that, you're like, oh my God, you freak out and you send the money. But to pay bail, you don't pay it over a wire transfer at Walmart either. You also don't pay bail on Green Dot gift cards like they'll ask you for. They'll also, it's not as prevalent now, but it's getting more. You'll notice sometimes you get a phone call from a random number and you say hello, no one answers. You say it 5 times. It's actually they're recording your voice for AI. So next time they'll call one of your relatives and they say, hey, Johnny, it sounds just like Johnny. So it's even more believable.
Wow, crazy. Thank you for sharing. So let me stick with you on this first question. So from a law enforcement perspective, what should the first thing someone should do if they discover they've been a victim of some kind of fraud, identity theft? What's one of the first things they should do?
Contact your bank, because you can call us, but until you call your bank, they can still keep using your stuff. Your bank's 9 times out of 10 is going to tell you to call the police anyway to get a police report, but just make sure your accounts are frozen, and if you can, get any available information, like printouts of all the fraudulent transactions, or any account information as to where the money was transferred to, if it was that type of fraud, or phone numbers, addresses, email addresses that were in contact with you. That makes it 10 times easier for us to complete the investigation.
Okay, any thoughts on that
Yeah,
question?
definitely make a police report. In one of my presentations, I have a young lady that had never been arrested before, and someone got her personal information, and when they were arrested, they used her personal information, and she was arrested over 7 times for failure to appear in court for whatever charges they were charged with. So if you have a police report, at least you can say, hey, my information was compromised, and someone's using my information. They didn't realize it wasn't her until they ran her fingerprints and all that. But the key is keep all kinds of documentation that you can. period. Credit freezes, I've been preaching credit freezes for years, and, you know, a lot of people just don't put them on, but that's one of the best ways to minimize new accounts being opened. It doesn't stop them from getting your credit card information and skimming it. It'll stop them from opening any new credit in your name. And please, once you get a social security number for a newborn grandson, get a credit freeze. Because the fraudsters target young kids because they know they got 18 years to build up a credit profile. And then when your son, daughter, granddaughter goes to apply for student loans, their first credit card, a car, whatever, then they realize they've had a credit file for 15, 16 years. Really scary.
So talk to us about credit freezes, because we hear people say, get credit freeze,
Okay.
what website do you go to, is there a cost, what's the process?
So you go to the 3 main credit bureaus. Maryland mandates that there's no cost to put a credit freeze on. So basically the way it works is you'll contact them and say, hey, I want to put a credit freeze on my social security, my information. And basically what happens, they'll put a credit freeze on it. No one will be able to open any new accounts in your name. You won't be able to open any new accounts. Maybe for some people that's a good thing.
Budget.
But, so say if you go to CarMax, you want to buy a car, and they use Equifax to check your credit report. You'll contact Equifax, and typically they'll give you a PIN number. You'll contact them to have it lifted. CarMax will check your credit report. Once they get your credit score, you can place it back on. And that's, I mean, it's pretty simple, and, you know, I preach it to my family members, just a lot of people don't take the time to do it. But I can tell you, when you go to buy something, then you realize your credit score is 580, because now you own a motorcycle, and you're repossessed, and you haven't paid, and all this stuff. It's eye-opening. I had that happen to a friend who had gotten married and was going to buy a house, and realized that he already owned the house, and had no idea. So that's pretty much essentially how the credit freeze works. And then the QR code, it'll kind of walk you through it also.
And that's one of the questions that someone asked anonymously, and I think you answered it. They said, is it necessary to freeze all 3 credit reports, or is freezing one of them enough?
All 3.
All 3, okay. And then when you unfreeze them, so you're a car, actually you buy a car, you unfreeze all 3?
Whatever one they're checking.
Find out which one
Yeah.
they're checking, and then unfreeze that one.
Yeah.
Got it. And you can do that from your phone pretty easily.
I haven't frozen mine in a while, so yeah, you can do it online. But
Jennifer?
I was gonna say, when you go to unfreeze it, they ask you, literally, when you go to unfreeze it, how long do you wanna go, how long do you wanna unfreeze it for? So I asked the person, like, how long do you need to check this? And they'll say 3 days. So I will, cause Equifax is asking me, how long do you want it? Well, they said 3 days, so I'll do 5. And they will automatically reset the freeze at the day that I say. So, because to errors human really foul things uptakes the computer, I give them 5 days. Because you said 3, and you know, you might get called into a meeting on the 3rd day or something. I'll give you 5. And I don't have to do anything else to put the freeze back on. It's automatic.
so years ago when it first started, you had to go back and put the freeze on. So now I guess they've updated where
After the
this makes
Equifax
sense.
data breach,
Yeah.
they've changed it.
I think that's like the first thing everybody needs to do, including me, is freeze these credit reports. That's really good advice. So we talked about freezing credit reports. When you think about technology, what role does technology play in preventing identity theft? And are there specific tools or services that either of you recommend to safeguard personal and financial information?
I do know certain credit, mobile banking apps, like maybe federal. I don't know about freezing your the lines of credit, but you can freeze your credit cards, just push a button, and it won't let your cards, debit cards, anything be used, and just want to buy something, just log back in your app and push the button, and it unfreezes your stuff. I know LifeLock is really good. You have to pay for that, but they monitor every single thing for you. Anything fraudulent, they automatically contact your bank for you and they get everything set up and straight for you along with your social security number and stuff like that. They can see if your social security number has been released on the dark web and things like that. That's all.
One of the things, especially if you have older relatives, parents, you can set limits on how much money they can use or be withdrawn at a certain time. That is key, because I've had cases where older adult has been scammed out of hundreds of thousands, and the family members didn't realize it because they didn't monitor the accounts. Now, if they had set up, because think about it, when we get in our 60s, 70s, our lives are pretty much set. We're paying the same bills, pretty much. So there's no reason to have access or to be purchasing a lot of large items. So if you have, say, $1,000 limit on purchases on their credit card, and then they go to try to use that, they'll get a flag and they won't be able to. And then you can all, that way you'll know, hey, something's going on. Why is mom trying to send $2,000 to wherever? So, you know, technology's really changing. I don't think the banks really do enough to educate people on what banking can do. And also, as seniors get older, you'll have either husband or wife pass away and they've always handled the finances. Now all of a sudden the person that's left is handling everything. And if they're not savvy with finances or don't even know how to get into the accounts, we've seen them turn it over to a friend, a family member to manage everything. And what do you think happens? A lot of times, exactly. Most people don't realize you're more likely to be victimized from a family member than you are these scammers calling you on the phone. That was shocking to me when I learned that. Again, my mom was victimized by a friend who I thought was taking care of her, was, you know, looking after her, and she lost about $70,000. She didn't tell me till years later. Now this was before I actually got into this field, but it really opened my eyes up to we got to take care of our older adults, really, and educate young people like this. So when she visits grandma and sees all these, you know, you've won X amount of dollars in the lottery letters, she'll know what she's looking at. And it's not just junk mail, that it is something that's really, really going on.
So stick with that for a moment, family members. So what role do family, I'm thinking about my own parents who are 80 and 78 years old, and I'm probably stopping on the way home with all my little notes. But what role do family members and caregivers play in preventing and addressing elder financial abuse?
Right. So about 12 years ago, my mom fell, laid on the floor for a couple days, so decided to bring her in with me and our family. So I was a caregiver for 10 years, which that's a whole another presentation. But the key is education and what you guys are doing here. One of the things that I did with my mom consistently was we did role playing. Because I would tell her, I said, hey mom, you just got this phone call from someone from the IRS. What do you do? And I had to keep reinforcing her because one time I was home just off and the phone rang in her room. I heard it and she said, oh yeah, you with the IRS? I'm like, okay, I'm gonna see how far this plays out. But even though I taught her, don't answer any of those calls, she's from an era where she couldn't say no. And it was really hard for her to just hang up the phone. So it's really reinforcing and then educating on them. You're going to be targeted with this scam. You're going to get a call from a person claiming to be from Social Security Administration or Medicare trying to get your Medicare number. You know, and then again, monitoring their accounts. One of the biggest issues that we have with our parents, and as they get older, they don't want to share, and they're secretive. And that's the hardest thing to get them to understand it. Look, we have to know what's going on. You know, you got more years behind you than you have in front of you. I've recently even sort of tweaked my presentation to include estate plan. because that falls into financial exploitation if you don't have everything set up properly. And I'm targeting those in their 50, right? When you get 50, you need to start planning and understanding. And I always ask this question, I do presentations. If you had a major heart attack or stroke right now, is there one person that would know where everything is that could represent you, take care of you, have a power of attorney, know what your last wishes are? And probably 80%, you know. Unfortunately, it's something we don't want to look at. And, you know, because we know it's near the end. I mean, you know, hopefully you live a nice long life, but I get people that call me all the time and say, you know, man, I wish I would have listened. I'm still dealing with my mom's estate. Because probate, if you don't have a will and all that, that's 2 years. And then the state decides the assets. So if you have all that in place, that helps and that minimizes. So it's a lot of different layers to, you know, financial exploitation, but I like to include estate planning also because that's one part of it that really doesn't get enough attention.
What questions do we have from our attendees so far? We'll start here and then we'll go. Oh,
You can go ahead first.
Okay.
okay.
I have two actually. One I'm thinking about when you go to purchase. Is it better to use your tap versus inserting your card? That's one. And because I'm over 50, so let me get them all out. Cause I promise you I will.
I'm going to write them down. You said two. I'm like,
Yeah, I'm gonna forget. And then the second one is it better to shop with your credit card for that protection in the event there's a scam situation versus your debit card?
So we've been also seeing now, not to scare anybody, but they have skimmers for taps as well now also. But 9 times out of 10, you go into a place like 7-Eleven or a well-lit, you know, super public area, it's really hard for them to put skimmers on the stuff unless it's like an employee doing it. I don't recommend going to places like the random gas stations where it's kind of secluded, and if like, you're driving home late one night and the pumps are still open after 11, that's when the skimmers are going to be on the pumps. As far as the debit card, credit card thing, either way, in my opinion, as long as you catch it and you can you call your bank, you get reimbursed. Because also either way, unfortunately, the scammer, they already do what they're going to do. So you know, at that point, it's up to us to figure out who did it and get them charged. But your bank should take care of you either way. I'm not too super well versed in the credit card portion, so I don't know how damaging it could be in the long term, even if your bank does take care of it. But as far as the debit card portion, the bank will refund you.
I have one more and then I'm done, I promise. So I saw in the news they're talking about the QR codes lately and how you really have to watch the whole, everything that's going on with QR codes. How can you determine a good QR code, a safe QR code to use versus one that may potentially be linked to a scam?
honestly, it's really hard because they like to mimic what, you know, say if you go to a restaurant, or you see a lot of them on parking spots where you use the QR code to scan. Honestly, that's a hard question because what happens, they mimic it almost exactly like what it's supposed to be, but your information is going, or whatever you're, charging or whatever is going to their account instead of the actual one. The key with all this is monitoring your transactions on a regular basis.
Okay.
And back to your earlier question, it's typically easier to get credit card charges removed. But both of them now are pretty easy to get it done. It's just a hassle, especially if you have to change bank accounts and all that stuff. One thing that's really taking off is AI incorporated in these scams. Again, my voice is somewhat distinctive, and you can go on or Facebook, so since I'm being streamed now. And there's apps that'll take my voice and then call you, and you'll actually think you're talking to me. One of the things you can do, especially with the family member scam, if you get that call from son, daughter, grandkid, it actually sounds like them, have a password in place that, hey, grandma, I've been arrested, whatever, I need to pay the bail. Okay, what's the passcode? The scammer shouldn't have that. So that way, that's something that you can have in house. But really now, with any large transactions, you really gotta check and make sure that it's going to whoever you want it to go to. We could do this for 2 days on all the different scams out there and how they work. There was one going around that's still sort of popular, is when you go to purchase a house and you have to put a down payment. They were actually hacking into the settlement companies' sites and getting all the information, contacting you, saying, hey, we need you to wire your money for the down payment before settlement. People are wiring hundreds of thousands of dollars, get the settlement. And they're like, yeah, we haven't received your wire transfer. Well, we sent it to so-and-so. But again, they have the emails, they have with AI. Now, the spelling, punctuation, and everything is perfect. So you really think it's coming from a legitimate source.
Yeah, that used to be a dead giveaway.
Oh, and
Yeah. Spelling errors and stuff.
What's interesting about that is some scammers did that on purpose.
Why?
Because they figured if a smart person wouldn't fall for the misspellings, a person that's not that educated will fall for that and believe it.
And they
Isn't
got
that
you.
interesting?
Then they got you.
Yeah, they got you. So double-edged sword,
Wow.
I have a few questions. So, have you guys ever dealt with where people may download an app because a scammer may tell them to download an app so that they can mirror their phone? Have you ever experienced that before? And if so, what are some tips or tricks we can do to kind of help our elders recognize, have that judgment that that's not something they should do since they're not as advanced with technology?
Right.
I've never seen the apps. I know that, like the classic Microsoft security scam, it's called TeamView or something like that, where they're like, I need to go on your computer to delete this file. So you give them access to your computer and they go in and they get all your bank account information, things like that. I would just say never let anyone over the internet access your computer or your phone or something like that, because they don't need to.
And with the apps, it's typically you'll see apps that are fraudulent that are selling something, as opposed to ones that's like AI apps and different things like that. So it's they'll typically mirror like an Amazon or something like that, and you purchase stuff and you never get the product. Is anyone familiar with cryptocurrency scams? Yeah.
We're familiar with cryptocurrency, not necessarily.
Oh,
scams.
scam. So typically how it's working now is they'll kind of do it in conjunction with online romance scams. So you'll set up a profile, you'll communicate with this person, they'll say, hey, I'm in the crypto field. You familiar with crypto? Not really, but he said, hey, you can make a lot of money investing in crypto. Well, I don't feel comfortable just sending, why don't we do this? Send $300, I'll set you up an account. It's all legitimate. I'll set you up an account. You can go online and look at your account. You'll send them $300. They'll set up an account, just like a Wells Fargo account, American Express, and you go on and you look at your $300 turn into $7,000 in about a month. And then what's our natural inclination? Keep spending money. Exactly. Sometimes if you ask for money, they'll even send it back to you, whatever you want, because they know you're going to pour more money into it. And when you're looking at this website, and eventually you'll go on, you go to log on, gone. But again, with technology and the internet, they can set it up to look just like a regular, Merrill Lynch account or something like that. So the key is, if it sounds too good to be true, it is too
Probably
good to
is,
be
yeah.
true. You know, if you have a friend that's dating a person that's overseas working and they never meet them in person, telltale sign, dead giveaway. Any kind of, scam or somebody reaching out to you to make a decision right then and there to send money to odd places where you typically wouldn't send money to, it's red flag right there. So, we just gotta be vigilant. One thing you can do, and I do it, is I have an alert on Google for any kind of fraud, scams, elder abuse, or anything like that. So when articles pop up throughout the U.S., I'll get an email with a specific article that's related to my searches. So that I keep up with a lot of different scams. One recently, and I'll end it. Person that passed away. There was a guy going to funeral homes and looking up obituaries. They would see, Mr. Johnson passed away. He would buy a Bible, put Mr. Johnson's name in the Bible, and then go show up at Mr. Johnson's house and say, hey, I understand, sorry for your loss, but, Mr. Johnson purchased this Bible, and see his name is right in here. And literally, you're going to believe that.
Oh my God.
And you're already emotional.
Emotional, exactly. And they'll get you to pay for that Bible, and it's all a scam. That's one, especially with obituaries. When the loved one passes, once the burial is over and all, contact the funeral home and tell them to take it down. Because think about all the information that's in obituaries. Or when you go to the funeral, all the information that's in the, in the program. Sons, daughters, cut, all that stuff. And that's what they look at, and they can target.
I mean, it's so hopeless.
People are like, you're so depressing. I'm just trying to educate you.
Lisa, I got one comment.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm sorry. So one thing I've recognized or noticed is when the elders that I care for do Google searches for phone numbers, and then those phone numbers end up being the wrong phone number. That happened to someone that I know that I take care of. And that was, they just Google search, Google University, but it wasn't the right website, even though it pops up as like a primary or sponsored.
Right,
So that was,
right.
yeah.
That's why you never Google, say, Bank of America
Right.
contact information.
Yeah.
Use the back of your credit card or go to their specific website. That happens more than people realize, especially with tech. You want to get someone to help you with your computer, and typically it'll be someone overseas, and once they get your credit card information, they got you.
Used to be years ago, I'll come to you just a moment. Used to be years ago, we would hear about dumpster divers. I mean, going through your trash and stuff like. They don't have, wherever they are, they don't have to leave their home to get your information. Scary. We'll go here and then.
Yeah, so I still write checks, so I heard of this thing where they can like whitewash.
Check washing.
Check washing. So I know my teenagers, they probably won't, I'm not gonna order any checks for them because they're like, why do I need to order a check? Because they use, PayPal,
Right.
and Cash App and everything, but I'm just curious, what is your opinion on still writing checks?
I don't.
And what is check washing too?
Yeah. So basically, check washing is they'll take letters out of mailboxes, and if it's a check in there, there's a certain kind of chemical that can erase what was written in there, and then they'll rewrite it to someone else or a different amount or whatever. And then they'll submit it for payment. I would still write checks. What I would do is make sure that check, once it clears and you can see it, that it matches up.
Okay.
And like, especially mailing stuff, I would go inside the post office.
Yes.
Don't even use the ones right outside the post office. What they do is, they'll open it up, the top, and put like a sticky subject stuff, just drop a rope in there and everything. Exactly, so, yeah. Have you guys seen that?
In check watching, yes, I don't know, yeah. I don't know how they get it. A lot of times you've seen, I think 2 years ago, there was a big thing with courier robberies where they were robbing the postal workers with their keys. Because they have a master key, which opens up every single apartment complex mailbox and things like that. And then they were selling them as ARPA for between $500,000 a piece. Because off that one key, you could make hundreds of thousands, possibly millions of dollars, depending on where you are.
Wow. So detective 1 month, right?
1 month.
All right, you know we're gonna give you your credit. Detective Hatcher, then I'll come back to you, I'm sorry, you had a question, let me ask this one question because it's related. What legal protections are available to people who do fall victim to financial fraud?
What do you mean?
Any kind of legal protections that a person would have, access to if they are a victim?
From us or the bank?
From the police department. Anything?
So that mainly falls on the bank.
Okay.
As far as investigative purposes, from my experience, the bank just says, here's your money back.
Oh, yeah.
But going off of that, I do recommend the more information you get for us, the easier it is and the faster it is. Because say you don't know the charges and you can't pull them up, even though you consent to giving us your bank transactions, the bank requires us to subpoena it, which can take up to a month. And then that subpoena can turn into another one. And then 4 months down the line, the video footage is gone from the bank or things like that. You can't get it anymore. So if you do end up, someone watches a check or something, or they go into a bank. I just had one where the lady got her debit card and license stolen out of her car. The person has gone to 7 different banks and gotten like $20,000 using her ID and her driver's license. So she was smart, and every single time it happened, she called the bank immediately. So the bank was able to compile that information, and she got it for us and gave it to us. So it's made things a whole lot easier. Now, if she didn't do that, we have to subpoena every single video footage, every single transaction, and that would take months to do.
And you're in Anne Arundel County, so are people getting? We hear about the victims all the time, right? Which is very disheartening. But are people getting arrested and prosecuted for these
Oh,
crimes?
100%. Sometimes things like this can take a long time because we don't know who she is. So we use certain investigative techniques to try to figure out, who's in the area, times like that, things like that. But a lot of times they drive rental cars. Obviously, these fake names, fake IDs. So it takes a little bit of time, but.
Which I want to get.
So, does that chime in real
Yeah,
quick?
go ahead, please.
For my over 30 years of working in law enforcement, we're still way behind in elder abuse investigations. And that was one of the battles that I ran into when I was in the police department, specifically with power of attorney abuse. And they would always say, oh, that's a civil matter, this and that. The best thing that you can do to try to protect yourself is have all your documents, affairs, everything in order. So if you have to call for law enforcement to come out, you know your credit card number. You'd be surprised how many people that has a wallet stolen but don't know their credit card information. They know they have it at, like, Tower Federal or whatever, but it helps when you know it specifically. That way you can call and have it shut down. But what I really suggest too is 2 things. One is compile everything, your marriage certificate, birth certificates, copies of your license, everything that's important in a binder. All your credit card numbers, all that, and lock it in a safe. And don't put it in the closet where everybody would see. Put it somewhere where thieves wouldn't know to look. Or there's an app or program online where you can update upload all your information. Some people aren't comfortable with that because you're giving all your information to a third party.
Yeah.
But again, if you have that binder, that would help. Your medical power of attorney, your power of attorney, any kind of legal document, your insurance policies, all that stuff should be in a binder in one place. And review it and update it as time goes on.
Good. You got a question?
So I wanted to talk a little about, because you talked about overseas and it triggered something. We travel a lot, we're overseas, we may go to an Airbnb and we're using their Wi-Fi. So we're either logging on with our phone or we're logging on with a tablet, and we're exposing whatever is on our devices to whoever is allowing us to use the Wi-Fi. Can you talk a little bit about maybe using a VPN or a better way to protect whatever we have on our devices so it's not stolen?
Yeah, so a VPN is great. One rule I have is when I travel and I'm using Wi-Fi, mostly I use my own hotspot through my phone. But if for some reason I have to use a public Wi-Fi, I'll make sure it is a legitimate one first, because you may go to the airport, everybody's on their phone, computer, and it may be one Wi-Fi that's legitimate, but people actually set up fake Wi-Fis. So you could see BWI1 is a legitimate one. Then you'll see BWI2, which is the fake one. If you connect to BWI2, they could put spyware on your computer. They could see everything that you're doing. So, number one, make sure that it is legitimate. Two, don't go to any sites where you have to put a log on and password. Just, your regular CNN and whatever. But that's, unless I absolutely have to, and I'll make sure I have my phone Wi-Fi. But any other Wi-Fi, I don't go to any sites where I have to put my log on and password. Once they put spyware on, you could be, in Europe, and all your keystrokes, everything, they get and they can download.
So if you're in a public place, how do you know which Wi-Fi is the real, legitimate, and which one is?
So I would typically look at, when you pull it up to see which one's there, like Starbucks, for instance, I would go up to the counter and say, is this a legitimate one? Well, for me, I try not to use any of those, because, you don't want them having access to your computer.
Most places too, when you log into Wi-Fi, the first web page you go to will be their login page. You have to click, obviously, accept the terms and things like that. A lot of them will require a password too. Like he was saying, BWI1 will have a password you have to put in to access the Wi-Fi. With BWI2, you can just connect freely, and that's a red flag.
If you connect freely.
Right, without a password.
And also don't have where you automatically connect
Right.
on your phone.
Oh, yeah.
Because whatever's the strongest, you're going to automatically connect to that.
Yes, I have a question. So you guys talked about scammers. You can you can track them locally or prosecute them locally. Like in Anne Arundel County or whatever. But overseas, how hard is it? You're shaking your head already. How hard is it to track those scammers down, with the lotto winnings? Because normally those come from overseas saying, hey, you won X amount of dollars or whatever. How hard is it to track those scammers and prosecute those people? Because they're always
very
on the
hard
move.
overseas.
Yeah.
To be 100% honest with that, as long as you get your money back, the federal government just says, oh well. Because at that point it's federal, and unless it's hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars, they don't even bother. They just make sure that you get taken care of. And they compile the information and they record it, so if it's a continuous, organization or group that's doing it, they'll eventually do something about it. But they have the caseload is so big and the amount of frauds are so prevalent overseas, it's impossible for them to go after each individual person that does things like that.
In my 5 years as senior liaison, FBI took one case from me, and that was because it was over 500,000. And they said we don't even touch anything under that.
Wow.
Yeah, it's and the agent said, we see this all the time, and it was the online romance scam case. But yeah, and unfortunately, a lot of times once your money is gone, it's gone.
You work too hard.
I know.
On this money. Yes.
Since you mentioned that, so officer, you said that banks will often give you your money back, but what I've heard, and I'm not an expert, is that you may not get your money back. Once it's gone, it's gone. So I never use my debit card for that reason.
So if you were legitimately scammed, like someone got your information, somehow took your money, 9 times out of 10 they should, but if, like the online romance thing is, if this person says, like, give me money, and you give them $100,000, even if you were duped, you willingly gave that person $100,000.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the bank's gonna say, sorry, you gave them that money.
Yeah, if it's where you willingly wired the money, most of the time you're not gonna get it back.
Okay, that's.
And these operations run all over. I mean, from Russia, Ukraine to China. 2 years ago, there was a United States Marshal charged with running an online romance scam. He's a police officer in D.C., U.S. Marshal, and he scammed 1.4 million. He got 1.4 million. So those romance scams are really, really hard to get through to people that it's not real, because they want that fantasy to come true, and they will throw everything at it, and you can tell them, and they'll still go behind your back and still try to send money. It's really, really, those are the hardest cases I worked on, is the romance scam.
There's some too. This guy was selling a boat. It was like boattrader.com or something. This guy, it was like a long-term account, like seemed like a real thing. This guy's like, "Oh, buy it." Send him a check for the boat was like $42,000. So sent him a check for $50,000 and said, "Hey, just get new gas, clean it, whatever, blah blah blah, and send me the rest back." So it ended up costing like $46,000. So the guy who was selling the boat did all that, sent the person who was supposed to buy it $3,000 back, and then the check bounced. That guy disappeared, so the guy who was trying to sell his boat now owes $50,000 to Navy Federal. And Navy Federal said, "This is your transaction, it's due the money now."
Wow. I see a question in the front row.
So particularly for the romance scams, but also for, I guess, scams at large. My question is, what advice do you have for persons who are covering such instances, like YouTubers or live stream covers for that, that can focus on an educational centric approach as opposed to an entertainment approach? Because a lot of times people watch it with the intent being maybe education, it might be more entertainment focused, but the comments, people that are reviewing it, the viewers are watching it, and a lot of the comments are more entertaining.
Right. It's kind of hard to, like I said, those are the hardest ones for people to understand. It's ironic, a friend of mine that I work with, and he's a retired cop, and he does an online dating thing. So he got an email from someone that saw his profile and said, "Hey, I'm online and I'm getting off, but I have a friend that I think you guys would connect." And they communicated for about a month, and I'm like, you know what, something's not right, bro. He's like, yeah, it's just but she had it down. She was in the military. I mean, just this elaborate story. And then at the end, like last week, she said, "Hey, I'm getting ready to get out of the military, and what if you're able to help me out?" Okay. Well, we're over in Iraq or somewhere, and while we were on a mission, we got these gold bars. And is there any way I can get your address so I can send you the gold bars, and you hold on to them until I get back? And and I'm like, and what would have happened is, if a person would have fallen for that, she would have said, "Well, I'm sending you $1 million in gold bars. I'm taking a risk. Send me 20, 30,000 just to protect myself." And we've seen people do that, but they get so wrapped up into it, and it was crazy.
So it sounds like with these romance things, they don't just come out and ask for the money.
Oh no,
They really are building a relationship.
Oh, absolutely.
Grooming.
It's a grooming process.
Yes.
So same thing or similar in the ballpark, so they have scams that have different populations or even surgeries or for people that go overseas and they go to pursue persons that they've met online or set up those relationships. Do you have any cases or advice for scenarios such as that nature as well?
I wouldn't do online dating or.
Yeah. I've known my wife for 10 years, so I didn't even ever use dating stuff, so I don't know anything about that really.
I think part of the problem is, and my daughter watches this show and I hate it, is 90 Day
Oh, I love that
Fiancé.
show.
Oh,
I love that
yeah, I'm like,
Cause it's so crazy that with these people. I'm sorry.
no, it
I
is
mean,
crazy. We
yeah.
know that.
Right.
But it's
yeah.
people that get wrapped up into that see that as reality.
Yeah.
And those are the ones that, because we can look at it and laugh and all that, but because it's just so bizarre. It's always an issue with something.
But then how can them people that actually did get scammed on 90 days?
Oh yeah.
And it's heartbreaking to see it.
It is.
Yeah. Or what's the other one?
Oh yeah.
Love After
It's another
Lockup.
one of my go-to phrases.
Oh yeah, Love After Lockup. Connecting somebody in jail. And
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow, so we're trying to can you collect the anonymous questions? If y'all can pass it this way, because I see some people wrote things down, and then she'll collect them, make sure those get answered. And I have looked up and just researched some tips also of things to keep yourself safe, and I'll just mention these, and you all can certainly add on. Change your account passwords often. I would say my husband's always big on that, always changing your passwords often. And making them difficult passwords, not like, the password 1, 2, 3, 4. Multi-factor authentication. Does anybody know what that is? Multi-factor authentication. So that's logged into the website. There's 2 different ways that you have to authenticate. Sketchy websites that want your credit card information. So you see this really cute top, really cute purse, and you go to this website and it looks suspicious, but the purse is so cheap and the shirt is so nice. You have a question, right? You want to pass it in? Is you working on the card?
I've asked them.
Oh, okay, good. Don't carry your social security card in your wallet. Don't print it out on checks. Back in the day, that used to be a thing. Your mail, be careful of mail, and if you get things that are have your credit card or bank information on it, to shred those or tear it up. Should everybody have a shredder at home?
I did.
Yeah,
So you can actually contact the post office and they'll email you a list, everything that's coming to your house that day.
Yeah.
So like say if you're supposed to get a bank statement that day and it's not in the mail, you can call the post office and say, where's that? And if they say deliver it, then obviously you can watch out for that.
Exactly. Emails from unknown senders. If you get those, don't download the attachments that are part of it. And like you said before, check your credit card statements for charges and things like that, as well as your credit report. Check your credit report each year. You want to add something?
No, I mean, that's that's good. I'm actually thinking about I've done several presentations over busboys and poets. But having it posted, I do a presentation called The Illusion of Privacy, and I talk about how all our information is out in the public forum. So I'm trying to get a representative from the credit bureaus to also attend with me. I can do the presentation and they can answer any questions about credit bureaus and all that stuff and credit freezes. So I'll let you guys know when I schedule that.
Couple more questions from the audience? Yes.
Could you name the 3 credit bureaus, just for those of us who haven't seen them?
Equifax, Experian,
TransUnion.
TransUnion. See, why you put me on?
No.
And those 3 credit reports, you can get the credit report every year complimentary?
Yes. Go to Federal Trade Commission website to get the exact link. Because there's a lot of them out there that says free credit reports, but it's not the free credit report.
Annualcreditreport.com.
Right.
Annualcreditreport.com. I think it's on the QR code. I'm pretty sure it's on the QR code. But it's annualcreditreport.com. You get your credit report for free, not your score.
Right.
So you don't need your score for the things that we're talking about here today. And it's every rolling 12 months. So we're in September, so you can get it again next September. And you can get one from each bureau, so you can stagger them if you want.
We'll come to you in just a second. Lady here, you have questions?
So I had a question about, I guess a new thing that someone keeps texting, and it's coming from an unfamiliar number. And it's like, they're acting like they're familiar, like, oh yeah, when are we getting together? Haven't heard from you for a while. I just delete them, or I block them. Another person says, oh, you just have to send something back and ask them what they want. So what's the nature of their, what are they trying to get from those text messages?
So sometimes they'll send you a link as well. Like, you aren't going far enough down there, the path they hope you take. But some of that, they'll be like, this is the post office, you have a package, click here to have it delivered to you. And somehow, when you click the link, you go to those websites, you can like snapshot everything on your phone and things like that, and it's all your information.
Yeah, I would, if you get, basically they're trying to groom you. I get them all the time. If I'm bored, I play. And they'll say, hey, are we still meeting for lunch?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah. Who's this? Oh, I said, I think you got the wrong number. Oh, okay. You seem pretty nice. How do you know I'm nice? And they'll start and it'll continue on and, eventually it'll be a nice looking girl and they'll send you a picture. But you'd be surprised how many people fall for that.
Yeah.
Lisa?
Hi, when I get those messages, I delete them and my phone says report John.
John, that's what I do.
That's
Yeah.
what you should do.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Young lady?
Can online scammers steal my Robux?
Can online scammers steal?
Or Roblox.
Oh, Roblox, that's a game.
I think if it's already, I'm not too sure about Roblox per se, but I do play video games. I think if it's already attached to your account, unless they log into your account, I don't think that they can steal it.
Okay.
Roblox is up and coming.
Because you're concerned about that.
A good point, because my kids, they play those games online, and it's always someone unfamiliar
Right.
that start chatting, and I have to tell them, be careful of those people that start chatting with you, because a lot of older adults will come online so they can find someone that they can start up a conversation with, so that can be very dangerous.
Yeah.
That is one thing I have seen, if you have young kids play Fortnite and stuff like that,
Yeah.
they'll say like, hey, come to this lobby, I can level you up really fast, just send me 7,000 V-Bucks, so it's called Fortnite. So this one kid spent like $20,000 on V-Bucks on his parents' credit card. Because when you're that young, you should know you can't use parents' stuff, but they don't understand the repercussions of it, so like $20,000, whatever, like, they don't understand.
They have no concept.
Oh, yeah.
I just got a text a couple days ago, and it was for Kamala Harris fundraising. Of course, I'm like, oh, okay. And then I was like, wait a minute, Lisa, you almost that guy. Because you think, well, I'm going to get $20, whatever. Then it's like, I don't know. And this person, it just random text messages.
Exactly.
So they're trying to get people that way too with donations. You want to tell us who we have joining us virtually?
So our third speaker, Dr. Chandra Parks, is joining us virtually. Hopefully, you'll be able to hear her. You want to read her bio? You have a bio?
I read it at the beginning.
Okay. So, Chandra, can you hear?
Yes, can you hear me okay?
Okay, they're nodding, yes, they can hear you. I'm gonna set my phone up on the table, and look, I told y'all, praying woman, we gonna have this, the devil is a liar. So go ahead, Dr. Parks, and she is in the mental health field, she's a therapist, and there's definitely a mental health component to fraud recovery, even, like, we can't live in fear. We need to live in awareness, but, and she's also a financial social worker. She's very big in the financial field, as well as very accomplished in the mental health field. So go ahead, Sora, doctor, everything. She's got like all the letters after her name. Go ahead, Chandra, and thank you for all you've been through this morning, and still, Dump This Get It Done. She is here with us.
Yes, Dr. Park, give us a little intro and give us some tips and things like that from your background and experience.
Okay, great. Thank you everyone for your patience, and of course everything that I was going to speak to you about this morning, I have to exercise research, so this is hands-on, life-on experience. So I do understand that everyone was just talking about fraud and how to deal with that. My role is how to help you deal with
questions for Dr. Parks? I had one.
No.
Well, I had one for you, Sandra, and then I'll give it over to Andre. So you talked about protecting yourself, your mental health, all that good stuff. What do you do if it's a family member or someone, a friend who fell victim? What are things that you can do to support them?
So absolutely. So it's all us, but for us, like the airplane, when you take a flight, you could be in the put on an oxygen mask on you first, and then you're able to help others. So as you're able to help others, one thing that you want to do is being able to provide empathetic listening without non-judgment. So, Lisa, if you came to me and said, hey, Sorshawn, I felt victim of this, my role and responsibility is to provide support, but not to judge Lisa and say, hey, Lisa, how did you let this happen to you? That is just me and just empathetic. But just being able to listen and say, hey, I understand. What is it that you need from me, and how can I support you on your journey to healing and recovery? What is it that you would need from the individual? Allow that person to give you, space. Either to be a listening ear, to listen to their story, and then you can ask the questions and say, thanks for sharing this information, and trusting me with your information. How can I support you, and what is it that you need from me? When individuals share their stories, it's important that we keep that story, safe. Like, we're not going to go and tell another person their business unless there's harm being done, and that's a different story. But for the most part, when people trust us with their vulnerability of what has happened, it is our responsibility, for our best ability, to keep that information safe, and to be able to help them the best way that we're able to provide them support. And if we're unable to do something that they ask us, then we try to connect them to some resources that may be available in an area to assist the individual.
Perfect. Thank you. It's very important to remember. Yes, very important. What other questions do you all have for any of our panelists from the audience? Yes, please.
So at the beginning, we talked about if you lose a family member, freeze their credit report, and I recently lost my grandma. So I want to tell my aunt to go freeze her credit report, but does she have the authority to do it?
Does she have a power of attorney in place?
She does. So
Yes,
as long as
she
she has power of attorney, she has the authority.
They'll probably have to she'll probably have to send that into the credit bureaus.
Okay.
And she can do it.
But I thought power of attorneys die.
I'm sorry, you're right. Power of attorney is that. Is she the executor of the estate?
I'd have to ask her if she is.
I'm sorry, you're right. I would just check with the credit bureaus to see how they can handle that.
Okay, thank you.
You wouldn't think if there's 3 months credit after they pay
Oh
us,
yeah,
but you
that's
still do.
huge. Yeah.
Wow. What other questions do y'all have?
Have you heard, it's a little different, in Howard County, they were breaking into cars and stealing like IDs, work IDs. And there was other stuff in the car that was valuable, but all they took was their work IDs. And so I was told that pretty much they do some type of scan, like I said, they take a picture or something. But it's been like recent, have you heard, I don't know if that's been in Orlando or?
I haven't seen that personally.
What is the idea to take a picture and pretend you're somebody else?
Yeah, they could. They use that to make a fake ID. That's not a work one. But they also, I'm sure there's some places where there's valuable stuff inside buildings. They have your work ID that can scan into a building now, which is for certain places, which is a big deal. Because you imagine in there at 3 o'clock in the morning, all the stuff is stolen, and you're getting questioned about that.
So in your experience, Andre, what are some challenges in prosecuting perpetrators of financial exploitation? And how can the legal system be improved to better protect older adults?
Probably number one, when we're looking at criminal perpetrators, is that they're overseas or they're hard to identify. So that's why a lot of these cases really don't get prosecuted. My biggest issues are the ones that are local and power of attorney related, and also home improvement scams. also. Typically what they'll do is pick out a neighborhood where it looks like it's an older neighborhood, older people. One thing they'll do is go and say, hey, we were working down the street and we see your driveway, looks like it needs to be sealed. And so we got all these extra materials. We can do it for $100. We'd rather not throw the materials away. And you'll agree to the $100. They'll get some kerosene and black paint and put it on the driveway. It looks nice and shiny. Then they'll go back and say, hey, we're done. That'll be $1,000. And you're like, no, you said 100. Oh, you didn't hear me correctly. It's 100 per bucket. We had to use 10 buckets. And now you've got these construction workers, and you got this older adult that's intimidated, and they'll say, hey, we did all this work. You got to pay us. So I've had cases where they've actually driven them to the bank to get money out of the bank. Yes. So that's another one. Now, Maryland Home Improvement Commission can charge, but they rarely do. One of the lesser known ones, and I got the first conviction in Howard County, is tree trimming scams. And they'll come up from Virginia and again, go through a neighborhood, see an older couple or whatever, knock on the door and say, hey, we were working down the street and we see your tree is leaning and we checked it out and it has worms. And they'll come up with some fake worms. It's supposed to be tree worms. And hey, if we don't take it down, it may fall on your house. And the one victim I had, they got $12,000 out of it and cut down 5 perfectly good trees. Once I found out about it, I contacted the Department of Natural Resources, had them come out to confirm that the trees weren't diseased. And so I got a conviction for destruction of property, fraud, theft, all that. But it's very rare that happens, because when you think of tree trimming, you don't see the scam part of it. And it is huge. We used to have a tree trimming task force in Montgomery County, Howard County, and they were making, matter of fact, the guy that I charged, you would pay him and he would take it to a check cashing place in Virginia. I had him the owner pull all the checks that he had cashed that month, and it was in December, and it was over $200,000. Wow. $200,000, tree trimming. So it's just so many things out there that target us and target your neighbors, especially if you have an older neighbor that's by themselves and nobody's really checking on them, and then you happen to see somebody doing work at the house a lot, where they're just making up stuff to do. Just keep an eye on them.
Question in the back?
Chandra, you still there?
Dr. Parks, you still there?
Yes.
Okay. I don't want to put you on the spot with this question, but are there still 2 questions? Resources for seniors to get mental health support, maybe through the various county social services? And the second question, I know it used to be available in Maryland and maybe even nationwide, that the like the 1-800 gambling phone numbers, you could get like maybe 4 or 6 free mental health counseling sessions. So even if it wasn't related to gambling, just if somebody is challenged and upset by scammers, is that a resource in case they don't have the money to go through their insurance card and pay the copay? I'm just looking for resources, alternative resources for mental health support that might be less expensive than going through your insurance and your copay. That's the bottom line of the question.
Dr. Parks, could you hear the question? Zora Parks, are you still with us? I don't know. You may want to check. I don't know. but just to kind of recap some of the things that they shared. Yeah.
When it comes to the AI and your landline, if it's an unfamiliar number, you just not answer it?
I don't.
I wouldn't either.
Okay. So on your cell phone, of course, if I don't recognize the number, I can just block it. But landline,
Yeah, she's
just
back.
don't answer.
Shonda, did you hear my question? Did you hear a question asked about the resources? I'm just trying to bounce back and forth. Go ahead, Sir.
They said don't answer the landline.
You got two definite no's.
If it's important enough to leave your voicemail.
I typically only get one phone call at our house, and that's my 99-year-old mother-in-law. But we all have phones, so our phone in the house rings very rarely. That's funny.
Yeah, we got rid of our landline.
Yes, that's true. I had one because I thought you needed it for an alarm system, but I think nowadays you don't even need it for that. So in 2024, just some, scams, just this year, as you mentioned earlier, Jennifer, 3 billion people's information was on the dark web back in April 2024. They said that's pretty much everybody's information. Ticketmaster, who's used Ticketmaster lately, in May, 560 million customer records were stolen, including payment information, history, addresses, email addresses. June of this year, Life360, I don't know if anybody uses that for tracking and stuff. They announced a data breach of about 500,000 records, so it is just everywhere. So I do want, we'll take this last question, and then I'm going to let them give closing remarks.
Yes, I think there's one thing that I've noticed in Maryland, is that when people buy houses, it's put out there, and I don't see that in other states. And so then the new homeowner starts getting all this mail from people wanting to take out equity loans, or sometimes it'll say, oh, there's a warranty that you'll miss or anything like that. Are you finding that a lot of those scams that are scams like that? Because
most of them aren't really scams because they're legitimate businesses that get that information. Also, if you purchase a car, typically within 3 weeks you'll get extended warranty letter in the mail. Now, MBA says they don't share that information. Somebody's sharing it.
yeah.
There's no way that all of a sudden, I start getting this information. But is everyone familiar with the state tax database? So what that is, if you own a home in Maryland, you can go on the state website, put your specific address in, and see when you purchased it, who you purchased it with, how much you purchased it. Or you can, if you want to look for everyone on your street, you can do it by street, and you can go all the way down. Right.
Sales price.
Yeah, sales price. But what does it give you? Address, sales price, and who owns the house. And that's 3 critical things needed for identity theft. Also, businesses or these companies that are selling your personal information that's public. Like, I think it's Equifax sells your information that's public. So you can go online right now and say, I want to target those 65 and older in Columbia, Maryland, in such zip code with a net worth or wealth of $500,000. They will give you a list of all those people. And sometimes it'll have phone numbers, sometimes it'll just have name, address, sometimes it'll be emails. But it was set up for legitimate businesses to, attract customers. But any scammer can go online and get all that information, and it's cheap. It's not even expensive.
And Equifax had a major data breach.
Oh yeah. So some of the things, and to recap, some of the things, and thank you all so much for all the information you share, but some of the great things, I have a whole page of notes. But I have circles and everything. But anyway, some of the great things that I heard you say, Andre, was, freeze your credit report, have that binder with all your information in it, have it readily available, be mindful of, check washing and things like that. Freezing the credit cards, something you can do right from your phone, if something happens. I love that. We also heard from Detective
Patrick.
Detective, that got too many numbers. You see my paper, right? Detective Hatcher, definitely, one thing I heard you say first, contact the bank. You've been a victim, contact the bank first. You can do the police report, but I bet you're gonna ask them, and then contact the bank. So that is so important to hear. We heard from Dr. Parks, who joined us virtually. If it happens to you, breathe. First thing she said was breathe, just breathe. Acknowledge what happens and then seek to take care of it. And if it happens to family or friends, be an empathetic listener that's non-judgmental. Those are all really, really great tips. And so I want to allow our panelists to give any closing remarks they would like to give.
I'm gonna keep it short and sweet. I really appreciate the invitation. I had a great time. Hopefully you guys, learned something from it.
Absolutely.
I have a few cards that I'll leave here that if you'd like to connect with me, or if you want to put something together a little bigger or whatever, I'd love to do it. My goal is, I've always said, if I can protect one person, everything I've done related to this is worth it.
That's right.
And that's the way I look at
Is
it.
your event next week public? October 5th?
Oh, no, I'm not actually doing that because I didn't get the attendance that I needed, so I'll take a bath on that one.
So, thank you for having me here and listening to me. He's way more smarter than me when it comes to stuff. I'm mainly dealing with credit card frauds and bank frauds, things like that. I will say, if you ever find yourself a victim of credit card fraud, something like that, contact your bank immediately and get as much information from them as possible that you can provide to us. Just like I said, it makes it easier for us, which in turn is better for you, because information you could give us that day could take us months to get from the bank.
Dr. Parks, any closing remarks?
I want to thank everyone that's listening to this wonderful, great information, and just encourage, do not be afraid to reach out and ask for help. There is no shame with asking for help and getting the support that you need.
That's nice.
Thank you. Will you two stay for a moment after we're over in case people have any questions on the side? Okay, good. Let's give our panelists a